Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Baby Arugula, and this is episode 6 of Making Music with Baby Arugula, me. So thank you for joining us. In last week's episode, we completed tracking all the instruments for our song, completing the process of taking our 8-bar loop that we made in the very first episode and flushing it out and writing all the parts, performing and recording all the parts. So now, today, we are beginning our first step into the realm of mixing, which is fantastic. We're that much closer to releasing and publishing our project. So what we're going to do today is we're not actually going to mix anything. We're not going to touch a single plugin. In fact, we're hardly even going to work within the same project that we've been working on. What we're going to do is we're going to take our MIDI and bounce them out to stereo audio files, and then we're also going to take our guitars and we're going to bounce them out with the amp effects that we have on them. We're going to print those onto the stereo audio files so that way we don't have to keep running CPU processing those amps. And then also, just if you watch mixing and production videos on YouTube, you probably hear a lot of people talking about commitment and clearing decisions in their head just by being like, you know what, I like this sound, I'm printing it, I'm committing to it, so that way you don't have the option to just go back later and fiddle with everything, because there is an advantage to having that degree of freedom, and, well, not even freedom, but just like that, just always having the option to go back and tweak things. But at the same time, there's also an advantage to committing and just being like, you know what, it is what it is. And I kind of like that more. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our guitars, we're going to print those with the amps and commit to those sounds that we've had. And yeah, once we have all of our MIDI files and our guitars printed, we're going to move all of the audio files actually into a new project. I don't really like to mix in the same project that I wrote in. I try to separate those as much as possible. So that's what we're going to do. Once we print out all of our tracks, we're going to move them into a new project, line them up, and organize those. So we're going to name them all properly and color code them and group them and get our buses going. So that's what we're going to do for this episode. Thank you for joining me. I hope if you're struggling with organization of your own projects, I hope this is eye-opening. Maybe you'll learn a thing or two, and at the very least, I hope this is entertaining. So let's go ahead and jump into Logic now. I've rambled on for long enough. All right, so within Logic, there's a few ways to go about doing what we're trying to do. So I forget if I said it earlier or not, but I prefer to have some separation between my composing mentality and my mixing mentality and my mastering mentality. And one way that I separate those worlds is by taking my MIDI and all my comp tracks and bouncing them out to their own stereo audio files and moving those into a separate project. Right? So that's what we're going to do here as the first step of our file preparation for mixing. So what you want to do is you want to go in and set all the faders to unity, set all the panning down right down the middle, and then turn off all the plugins that you don't want, that you might have just put on really quickly so you could kind of get a feel of where you want to take your mix, and leave on the things that are effects that you want to keep, that you want to print on. So for example, I have the Archetype Corey Wong amp here. That is the amp cabinet that I am using for this particular guitar part. So I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to print that effect onto it so it sounds like we mic'd a guitar cabinet. For the keys here, I have the Sketch cassette doing a little something. I really like that, and I would prefer to think of that as part of the instrument as opposed to an effect that I would put on later. As well as this EQ here, I don't mind leaving that on. The Tal chorus here on the lower keys, I quite like that. I think I'll just keep that. But other things here like the LA2A and this delay on this guitar part, those are things that I would rather handle in the mix. So yeah, just kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So there's two ways to go about doing this, right? So I'll start with the drums, and I can solo the kick drum and hit Command B and bounce right to a stereo wave file, 24-bit, 48K, yada yada, include audio tail, whole 9 yards, and then hit OK, and then that will bounce a file of just the kick drum. And then I can open up my new project, go to Finder, grab the kick file. I've actually already done that, so I can demonstrate what I'm talking about. And in here we got kick 1, so let's scroll down here, grab kick 1, And there's our kick 1. So that is how I'm going to do it, because the other ways I'll show you right here. Say we had the shaker, right? We could do bounce in place, right? Which is a handy option. And if you're in a pinch or you're approaching the deadline that your client wants the mix back by, this is definitely a good way to do it. It's much faster. So you can set your destination to a new track or the selected track. You can choose what to do with the original Shaker 1 track here. And then you can choose to bypass or include effect plugins, which I don't have any plugins on it. I do actually. I have a compressor. Maybe I'll take that compressor off actually. Or, it's fine. I don't mind going in with a little bit of compression, especially on a shaker, because it's like, there's some spikes in there. Include audio tail and file, yada yada, right? Normalization off. You hit OK. And then it just really quickly goes through, bounces all the regions, and creates a new track for that audio file. And there it is. I think I only selected this region, but if I had done all of them, then it would do the whole thing. So that's a really quick and easy way to do it, except that I want to move these files into a fresh Logic project, right? So I don't want to create stereo files to mix within this thing and have this crazy, like, if I did this, we would have the track count would double, so we'd be looking at like 114 tracks. I don't want to deal with that. So we're gonna go ahead and delete this. Yeah, so I'm still in the middle of bouncing these out, so we will reconvene after I'm done with that, and we will be in the new fresh project, and I'll move all the files in for you. So see you in a little bit. Alright, so here we are in our new Logic project. I finished bouncing out all of the tracks from the previous project, so now let's go into our Finder. Over here, oh gosh, I got tired waiting. I guess we'll just grab all of them and I'll arrange them in the proper order afterward. That's fine. And there we go. So Logic will take a second to load everything, but there it is. Okay, so Logic just finished loading all of the new audio files. Now, this next bit that we're going to do, everything we've done so far has been personal preference for me because I prefer to mix in a separate project. However, what we're about to do here, whether you mix it in the original project or you mix it in a different project, this is something that you're going to want to do no matter what. And that is, well, I guess we have the tracks named, but if they weren't named properly, then you could go in and name them. But we're going to go ahead and group our instruments. Actually, we're not going to, you'll see here, there actually is a group function. We're not going to group that yet. That's more of something for like editing, I think, generally speaking, which we're not going to do right now, but we are going to kind of arrange our instruments in the groups. So I'll put the synthars, I'm actually going to put the synthars down here, kind of how they were before. So now we got our bass. I tend to like, there's various sort of reasons or almost like philosophies behind the order in which you arrange the tracks, and really it's up to personal preference and what works for you, but I tend to like my rhythm section all next to each other and then my leads afterwards. Some people will put like vocals next to the drums because those are kind of the two things that are the most upfront in your face in a more pop/radio friendly mix, but we don't have any vocals, so I'm not too worried about that. So we have our drums here, and then our bass, and then our rhythm guitars, and then our low keys and our high keys, which are basically doing the same parts that are already there. Then we got our lead guitar, our lead keys. Oh, our open hat is up here. Let's change that. Hat, open hat. We'll take a look at that after. Lead keys, so lead guitar, lead keys. And then the horns. Okay, so once you have all the tracks in, which we could have done this before, but it's fine. But once you have everything in, you can probably guess what I'm going to say, you got to save. And this isn't just saving often, this is saving period, so that way this project that you're working on doesn't disappear into the void. So go here, let's name this later, and we'll call this, we'll just call it mix. Alright y'all, so here all of our tracks are finally. I was looking and there was actually 2 tracks that I guess I had skipped over while bouncing out of the previous project, but everything's here now, and we got our drums and percussion down to the triangle, we got our bass, our rhythm guitars, our rhythm keys, and then our lead guitar and our lead keys. And then we have our funny, well, actually, yeah, let's move the recorder down, actually. So after our leads, we got our horns, then we have the sounds that Henry sent us, then we have the recorder. I think I'll put the recorder between the horns and Henry sounds. Now we got to think about a couple things, right? One thing that we could do, and I'm not going to do this yet, I think I would make this decision as I'm editing and as it becomes necessary, but I'm just going to demonstrate this as something that you could do. So I have our drums and our percussion here, right? So we could go and we could make a group 1 new. We'll call it drums/percussion. And as long as you click this editing thing here, assuming that your groups are active, right? Say we're on the baritone sax and then we're like, oh shit, our drums are out of time, right? We can grab our kick, we do that, right? Kaboom, all of our drums are highlighted. Say we need to chop out something like this, make a cut somewhere, it'll do it for the whole group. We're not going to do that, but if we had recorded like a whole drum kit where we have several microphones on one source and they need to be synchronized with each other, that would be something that we could do. We're not going to get into that right now because I don't think it's necessary. If it becomes necessary, then we will do it, but I don't think it'll be a problem. But really what I want to do right now is actually go into here and we'll take our drums and our percussion and we're just going to color them. And I like to do I don't like to do the top row of colors because I find they're just a little bit too bright, but I don't mind these or even down here a little more. And then we'll take our bass, and I usually just hop 2 over. It's just what I've gotten used to, even though it's not exactly the most appealing color. But we'll take our rhythm guitars and we'll go over 2 more. Our rhythm keys, over 2 more. Our lead guitar and our lead keys, over a little more. Now the horns, and then our recorder. Yeah, I think the recorder we'll do separately. And then all of Henry's sounds we can do like that. Cool, so now we have all of our tracks colored, right? Now we'll go over here and select all of our regions, and then we will color our regions based on the tracks as such. And now we got our pretty little rainbow, right? Fantastic. So now we can tell, okay, we got our drums, we got our bass, we got our rhythm guitar, we got our rhythm keys, we got our lead guitar. Maybe I colored the rhythm keys different from the rhythm guitar, so maybe I want to color the lead keys different from the lead guitar as well. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Of course, we've already continued with the color scheme, so we can't just go 2 over. But we could do something like that, a little bit brighter. That's fine. Okay, so that's it. We're good to go. Now, I'm going to want to enhance the feeling of all of our drums and percussion being in a room together. So I'm definitely going to do individual processing, but I do want at least one bus where they're all being processed together. And then I might even have another bus that's like a room that I send them all to, maybe except for the kick drum, but we'll handle that later. We'll just get our total group buses all together. So we'll call this drums/percussion. The bass, I'm actually going to do something right now because I know I'm going to do it later anyway. I almost always do this, and even if I don't, this just saves me a step to do it now, and that is new track with duplicate settings, and then copy the region down. We'll call this bass 0.2 or something. And that's just if I want to do some effects on it or something, reamp it, I'll decide later. But so we'll take both of these and then bus them to bus 2 and call this one bass. The way that I learned to mix was through buses, but recently I've learned about some people who prefer not to mix that way, which I find really interesting. I like buses for everything. Like, I think that I use buses in more scenarios than probably most people do, which I think is fine. I mean, everyone has their own style, so whatever. But, like, for example, I'll do rhythm guitar, rhythm keys, lead guitar, lead keys, and then I'll bus my key buses together to one key bus, and I'll bus my guitar buses to one guitar bus. So this is rhythm keys, bus 5. And what I'll do is all my instrument buses, all my group buses, I'll do like the lower numbered buses starting with send 1. And then all of my effects, my reverbs and stuff, I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. So here we have send 5, lead guitar, lead keys. And so one thing that I'm wondering here is, like, I like to have my buses going into buses and kind of just have these like bus like trees, like they're all branches of trees that connect and whatnot or something, I don't know, or a web or whatever. But a question that I'm asking myself now already is, would I want to send my rhythm tracks to the same bus, or would I want to send my guitars to the same bus and my keys to the same bus? I'm probably going to do it based on instrument, not based off of the part, because this is already based off of the part. We'll just have to hear which one we like more. So now we're at the horns, and this is the sort of thing where it's really nice to have your own template ahead of time, so you don't, like, no one's paying me to do this, but if someone were, I wouldn't want to spend all my time doing this instead of mixing. Definitely a good thing. If you haven't done so yet, it's definitely a good idea to make your own template. I have, but I did it on another computer and I haven't transferred it over, and I figured for example's sake, I might as well show this process. This will be SFX, I guess, even though they're not even, like, they're kind of effects, but fuck, I don't know what to call it. Yeah, I guess we'll call it SFX. I don't know. It's not quite the same, but whatever. And then we'll take our guitars here, and these will go out to bus 10, guitars, and our keys, swell. All right. There we are. So now we can go ahead and assign our channel strip colors. And I color them based off of the tracks that are feeding them, because I want to be able to easily refer back to where the signal's coming from, you know. That's fine. I'm making these a little bit darker, but I think the point still stands. Now here's a question. What color do we make our guitars? Let's go with like a purple. I don't know. And then our keys, we'll do like a kind of purplish type thing. Cool. So there we go. This is a pretty simple and can be boring and overwhelming part, or not overwhelming, but overlooked, certainly, aspect of mixing. But file organization is really crucial. And there's a lot more that we could do, actually. Like, if this were a template, we might already have plugins loaded up, not necessarily with any settings applied to them, but just there. So instead of being like, okay, I know I want to compress this, but what compressor do I want to use? You know, your go-to thing is already there. Or maybe instead of like having a specific compressor, you have like the SSL channel or the Sheps Omni channel or whatever your favorite channel strip is. So you don't even have to load a compressor and an EQ and this and that. You just have one thing ready to go. Or you already have your reverb and your delay sends going off. You already know you're going to want to send your lead guitar to a delay or whatever, you know. So you might already have that kind of preloaded. But we don't have that. One thing we will do, however, which we did in the previous project, is we will throw the SSL bus compressor, dual mono, on here. And we'll couple this, go analog, ratio of 2, slowest attack, or... yeah, I'll typically do slowest attack, and I'll set the release to auto. I think that's fine usually. And I'll bring this down to 2, and I'll bring this down a little bit as well to like 11 or 12. I'll adjust it once we have signal going through, but those are safe settings for now. And then the L2, and we'll do that one stereo. And we'll just bring this down to -0.1. So now we got our master bus just safe, so we're not going to blow up anything. Which, I don't know, like, I feel like Logic and DAWs have safety precautions so you don't blow up your speakers, unlike a console. But there's definitely no harm in doing it. So, and this is another thing also, file prep and mixing you should do on 2 totally different days, because you need 2 different kind of mindsets. In this, you have to think, okay, how am I going to make this as easy as possible for myself? And when you're mixing, you have to be thinking creatively and efficiently. Well, you have to be thinking efficiently this way too, but you have 2 different goals at hand, and it's better to just separate it and dedicate a whole day to mixing as opposed to spending half the day prepping and the other half mixing. Alright, so you're not going to believe it, but after listening to that, I realized we forgot about kick 2. So it turns out I was missing more than just 1 track. Yeah, we only have kick 1 here. I don't know. I swear that I bounced out kick 2. I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm gonna have to double check and make sure we got everything. But I think that kick 2 might be the last one that we're missing, because everything sounded like it was there. So I'm gonna do that off camera. It's no big deal, but definitely it's a good idea to check and make sure you have everything, because if a client sent you a song and then the fucking kick drum is missing, that's a problem. But yeah, this was the basics of file prep and project organization in Logic Pro. I hope this was reaffirming or educational or entertaining, whatever it was for you. I'm glad it was. So yeah, that was episode 6 of Making Music with Baby Arugula. I am Baby Arugula, the host, so thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week where we actually begin mixing. Cheers.